Moving day at the palace, or should we say moving night, the former Prince Andrew exiting Windsor Castle under the cover of dark for his brother's private Sandringham estate in Norfolk. The latest document dump about late financier Jeffrey Epstein providing more lewd allegations around the former royal. Also out, but not yet stripped of his title, ultimate Labour Party insider Lord Peter Mandelson was under criminal investigation over the leaking of state secrets to an Epstein who had many friends and acquaintances. From the Kremlin to the Clintons, it seems, from far-left thinker Noam Chomsky to far-right agitator Steve Bannon. Will the current occupant of the White House himself face a reckoning, or simply shrug off the latest allegations with a "see, they all do it" attitude to entitled elites that further fans the flames of populism? Can the age of massive data dumps meet the promise of transparency, or overwhelm and cloud the issue of accountability for all? Today in the France 24 debate, we're taking a look into Epstein's world. With us, Elisabeth Moutet, columnist for the Daily Telegraph. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
From Washington, journalist and historian Andrew Yarrow, who served as speechwriter in the Clinton administration. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Francois.
And from Florence, Italy, Brooke Harrington, professor of sociology at Dartmouth College and the author of Offshore Stealth Wealth and the New Colonialism. Yeah, a lot of this is about money as well as power. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Your reactions on the hashtag F24 debate. Yeah, the move was already planned. Still, it's a change. Dateline the village of Wolferton in eastern England, where the locals have a new neighbor. Andrew, the disgraced younger brother of King Charles, moving into his new digs at Sandringham.
Obviously, the royal family have got property here. They've lived here for generations. Where else can he go, basically? He's got to go somewhere.
Can't he go somewhere else, really? No, not my cup of tea, I think. I think he needs to go somewhere else, in my opinion. But yeah, that's about all I've got to say, nicely.
All right, she said it nicely. And Elisabeth Moutet, is Andrew ancient history for the British, or is this still nonetheless a shock that now he's stripped of his title and kicked out of Windsor Castle?
I think this is damage control when they finally took his style, and by they I mean Prince William egging his father on. Charles was finding it difficult to attack his brother so much, and William has been pushing for month and month and month to strip him of title, house, everything, because he realized probably earlier than Charles how dangerous it was for the British monarchy. The entire image is wrong. The abuse of women, both Yorks. I mean, his ex-wife, who was still living with him until today, Sarah Ferguson. All of this. Jeffrey Epstein paid money to her on Andrew's request because however money she's got, she spends more. So there's a whole trail of emails from Sarah Ferguson thanking Jeffrey Epstein privately while she was saying that she wouldn't speak to him anymore after the accusations. And then, of course, she was shown to have spoken to him afterwards. It looks sleazy. It looked like the royal family was not caring about the women who were abused. And Andrew himself destroyed himself in 2019 with an interview he gave to the BBC, to Emily Maitlis, which was a complete car crash. He appeared exactly the way he is in real life, which is entitled, pompous, arrogant, and completely unable to emphasize with anyone. It is a car crash for the royal family. Which is why now he is being kicked out of everything, and he no longer has a name, or rather, he's now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, which is the family name that practically nobody else uses in the family.
Right. Let me ask you, Andrew Yarrow, for someone like Jeffrey Epstein, who made his money as a networker, to a large degree, having a royal in your company,
do we have any idea of how much that served his purposes?
Well, I think it's very mysterious how Jeffrey Epstein made all of his money. I mean, it's, certainly striking, overwhelming, the number of wealthy, powerful men, some women who he was associated with. The talk of perhaps him being a spy for the Russians, as Donald Tusk has alleged. Certainly that becomes more and more plausible when you see the array of powerful figures, in Britain, in the United States, even in France and Israel with Ehud Barak. So, the idea that Epstein could have been conveying compromising material to the Russians on the British royals and others, I think is compelling.
Right, and of course, in Elisabeth Moutet's publication, it's not Andrew Mountbatten who's been splashed across the front page all of this week so far. It's the former number 2 in the Labour government of Gordon Brown, former UK ambassador to the United States under current PM Keir Starmer. We're talking about Peter Mandelson. There was a headline on Monday. There was a headline on Tuesday. This is the Monday headline. There you see him in his underpants on the front page. Most recently, there's Gordon Brown's fury at Mandelson over allegations of leaking state secrets to Epstein at the time of the 2008 financial crisis, and at the current government for failing to open an inquiry last fall when the former EU commissioner was sacked as ambassador. Now, in the House of Commons this Wednesday, the Prime Minister answering questions about the vetting of Mandelson when he chose him as ambassador.
We went through a process. There was a due diligence exercise, and then there was security vetting by the security services. What was not known was the sheer depth and extent of the relationship. He lied about that to everyone for years. And new information was published in September, showing the relationship was materially different to what we'd been led to believe. When the new information came to light, I sacked him. But we did go through a due diligence exercise.
So, Elisabeth Moutet, there's no good answer if you're the current Prime Minister. Either you stink at vetting people, or you gave a free pass to, a man who was kind of an ultimate insider, it seems.
It's very complicated. I mean, I hold no brief for Keir Starmer, but he didn't want to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador, but everybody said, look, Trump is somebody who really needs a strong personality to sort of hold his own against Trump. Mandelson can do it. He's got more connections than anybody else. The diplomats you had were a bit weak. You need him. So there were lots of people in favor of Mandelson, who's a holdover from the Blair years, and the Blairite wing of the party still exists. A bit battered now, but still exists. And I also think that they discounted what Mandelson could get wrong. This is somebody who famously has been fired 3 times from the British government for various reasons. And people thought that the worst they could know about Mandelson was behind them. They didn't realize that there was much, much more to vet on this. But it is terribly embarrassing. Mandelson is seen in the Epstein files, and that's not the latest one, the latest batch of cadging plane tickets, or rather plane rides on the private plane of Jeffrey Epstein to spend gorgeous holidays at no expense in Epstein's island. The private plane was nicknamed the Lolita Express because it ferried so many beautiful young girls to the island. Mandelson actually was going there with his partner, or now husband, so it was not the girls who attracted him. I think what attracted him was the proximity to influence with Epstein, who knew everyone, and the luxurious holidays. He also asked for money for his partner, and his partner was paid I forget whether it's $30,000 or $40,000, but just because Mandelson asked, no.
For an osteopathy class, I think.
Whatever it was money. And so it looked bad from every and any possible direction. And now we find out much worse. What's much worse is during the financial crisis, Mandelson told Epstein decisions that the British government had not announced yet. So that's is insider trading, that facilitated insider trading, and that was betraying the secrets of the financial secrets of decisions taken by the government, the Bank of England, the Prime Minister. And I mean, it's illegal. But it's also very dangerous in terms of international relations. So that's a big thing.
And Brooke Harrington, sort of these back channel discussions between Peter Mandelson and the CEO of a major U.S. bank, J.P. Morgan. The Lolita Express aside, as Anne-Elisabeth put it, this sort of idea of getting freebies, of getting stuff paid for you. What are your thoughts on that when you look at the Peter Mandelson story?
The whole story reminds me so much of the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers and the Pandora Papers and what we learned from them, which is that above a certain level of wealth, everybody seems to be doing this. Just as we learned that even the British royal family has offshore accounts. Even the Prime Minister, David Cameron, had offshore accounts when the Panama Papers broke. Everyone's in on it. Everyone's expecting to sort of get these little freebies and be above the law, like sharing advanced knowledge of British policy with Epstein. I mean, like, who is he? He was just some American who didn't even go to college. Like, aside from his wealth, like, what right did he have to know any of this stuff? You could pick someone off the street in New York City and find someone with more of a right to know what Peter Mandelson said.
Are you suggesting that he didn't do it as a favor for money, but rather because they were in this rarefied atmosphere where behind closed doors you tell each other stuff?
Yeah, this is what I've learned from almost 20 years of studying the ultra rich and their behavior offshore. The money is actually a means to an end. And the end is this sort of chummy bro code network where powerful men do favors for one another and they compete with status for one another. And one of the ways they compete for status with one another, unfortunately, is by having sex with attractive women, and in Epstein's case, girls, children. And it's part of their sort of general disdain for the law and for social norms. Part of their expression of status and the way they use their money is to get away with violating the law and social norms. And that is the purpose for them to be rich. It's not just to kind of sit on a pile of money and enjoy it. They have to engage in these acts of impunity in order to be part of this network. That's the price of entry.
Anne-Elisabeth, in the 1990s, you hung your hat in New York City, the financial capital of the world. Was it that at the time it was pre-Me Too and you didn't have this kind of transparency that you do now? Or is it what was just described there by Brooke, that it's about not the public at large, but the elites?
I mean, I lived in New York in the 80s and 90s, and this is the time when the movie Wall Street is made, and when Michael Douglas has this great speech, he's Gordon Gekko, the trader, and he says, greed is good. So you had this sort of very sort of heated up atmosphere about making money. And most of the people who succeeded very well and honestly on Wall Street didn't go to college any more than Epstein did. So it's a very French attitude to say, oh, but he didn't go to university, he didn't go to a grande école. But if you really look at it, that wasn't the problem. He certainly was very clever. He certainly had a good game. And also probably when he promised and he said, I will give you advice and it's going to be good advice, I would assume that the people whom he advised, who are not either stupid or naive, got something out of him. They didn't realize the price ultimately. But it was not just the girls. The girls were to some extent, and it's going to sound horrible, but it was first, I think, the connections, the influence and the money, and the girls were part of the commodities that went with it. And it started as this horrible sex with minors affair, but I think in the head of Epstein, what was really important was, he gets given a house that was probably $10 million when he received it 15 years ago. It's the largest townhouse in New York, in Manhattan, and it's in the best neighborhood in Manhattan, or at least the most expensive. And it's now a house that costs probably $100 million because inflation. So we're talking about really pots of money, and this man who says, I can connect you with Putin, I can connect you with other people, I can find out things for you, and I can give you investment advice. And the investment advice cannot have been so bad because, again, he was talking to the heads of banks, he was talking to financiers. We can't detract from this the fact that presumably he had a talent, and there was a horrible flip side to the talent, not just girls, but also the spying for Moscow.
Brooke Harrington, was that investment advice or tax avoidance advice?
Everything.
Those things are often entwined with one another. I have a colleague in sociology who does research on wealthy people, as I do, and she was actually able to get deep enough into the stories of people who are like Epstein adjacent in the world of real estate investing, and she found they actually engage in orgies together. And if you want to be part of the real estate deal, you have to engage in the orgies because they don't trust you if you won't essentially create compromise on yourself. They won't trust you unless you are willing to put yourself in a compromised position so that everybody has some dirt on each other. And that's how they maintain what you might call honor among thieves, and how they get away with making multi-million-dollar handshake deals over properties and other valuables that they trade with each other. So I would say that the girls were currency to them, and it was part of their networking system that you could not be trusted unless you participated in what normal people might call depravity.
And you heard Anne-Elisabeth Moutet talking about those state secrets leaked, allegedly leaked by Peter Mandelson to Epstein at the height of the financial crisis in 2008. You heard her also mention Russia, Poland's prime minister, demanding a full inquiry, not into Epstein's ties with Mandelson, but again with the Kremlin. James Vizina has that story.
Suspicions are growing and action is now being taken. For Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, the latest information included in the release of over 3 million files adds to concerns that the Epstein paedophilia scandal was co-organised by Russian intelligence. This has pushed the Prime Minister to ask for a probe to be conducted into Epstein's possible links with Russia's secret services, as well as to Tusk's own country.
A growing number of commentators and experts assume that it is highly probable that this was a premeditated operation by the Russian KGB. This so-called honey trap set for the elites of the Western world, primarily the United States. This can only mean that they also possess compromising material against many leaders still active today.
Suspicions that are fueled by the release of emails showing the lengths Epstein and his associates went to recruit young Russian women, with documents including requests to book flights from Moscow to Paris and to New York. A honey trap designed to blackmail the global elite. Vladimir Putin is named over 1,000 times in the latest documents. Exchanges discuss appointments to come between Epstein and the Russian president, including after Epstein was convicted of procuring a child for prostitution. Previous emails also appeared to show Epstein offering advice to politicians on how to deal with Donald Trump. The question as to whether he was working for secret services isn't a new one. For years, some have suggested Epstein was in fact working for Israel's Mossad. Donald Tusk said that he would encourage others to pursue an international investigation.
Andrew Yarrow, your thoughts? How strong is the ties? Is the link to the Kremlin?
Well, it makes one think of the allegations in the 2016 American campaign that the Russians, that Putin had something on Donald Trump. And, you know, I'm not one prone to conspiracy theories in general, but, you know, there seems to be increasing evidence. You have an MI6 figure, Christopher Steele, who's made the same kinds of allegations in Britain.
But those have never panned out. And again, there's this question of, how much of this is water cooler chatter and how much of this is concrete evidence?
Well, you're right. And the question is, how do we get that concrete evidence at this point? You know, we have the Clintons testifying in a week or two here in Washington. I mean, there's still millions of pages of the Epstein files that haven't been released. There are all the redacted files in what was released, the pages that were released. How will we find out? You know, will Ghislaine Maxwell testify, or will she be pardoned and not testify? We just don't know how we could ever get this information out.
Elisabeth Boutet, you heard earlier Brooke Harrington talk about this idea of compromat being necessary for there to be, as she put it, honor among thieves. Your thought on this, these ties to the, again, this is speculation, right?
It's speculation, although, if that kind of story goes, it probably means something. And I was always amazed by the world of American real estate. And I live in France, I'm French, and the French real estate world is not absolutely sort of held up as the most sort of incredibly honest in the world. But there's nothing like American real estate, which is, for many reasons, including the fact that very often, depending on where the buildings are, depending what they house, the mafia is involved. Everybody says this is bad for Trump. You have to remember that, and therefore for the next election. But everybody that you see on the screen right now was a Democrat at the time. First of all, because if you're in real estate in New York or in New Jersey, which Trump was, for instance, everybody's a Democrat. If you need to have building authorization, you need permits for casinos, which was the case of Trump. First of all, it is a Democrat administration, and second, if it's casinos, you also deal with the mafia. So that, the idea that I hold you with blackmail, I believe it. It's the kind of atmosphere that you'd find.
All right. So with this latest documents, also we're getting new light on the breakup of a marriage, and include our allegations that the man who was once the richest in the world, still among the top 5, Bill Gates, caught a sexually transmitted disease through Russian girls met through Epstein. Gates' spokesperson has been categorical, calling the claim, quote, absolutely absurd. Now, speaking to National Public Radio, the billionaire's now ex-wife, Melinda Gates, answered this to allegations that he tried to secretly give her medication to stave off disease.
For me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life. And I hope there's some justice for those now women, right? We see them standing up in front of microphones in D.C. What they went through is just unimaginable, I think.
Yeah, but Brooke Harrington, what does this story tell you? Because we've had this picture of Bill Gates as the man who's helping to stave off disease around the world and filling in where the United States isn't giving as much to the World Health Organization, for instance.
It's it makes me think that the sexual exploitation of women is like a a hobby among the most powerful men of the world across all walks of life: business, science, education, politics. Again, I keep going back to what the Panama Papers told us, which is like above a certain level of wealth and power, everybody's doing it, everybody's in on it, crowned heads of Europe to business leaders. And it's the Gates revelations in particular made me feel kind of resentful about the fact that as part of my work, I have to engage with this man's product. I have no choice but to use Microsoft products for my work. It's required by my employer. And there's a kind of inescapability about this. And I've yet to see anyone in the press really contend with what this means for women. We're the majority of the world's population. And where can we go where we don't have to deal with rapists and predators? It's like there's no escape in my country.
You allude to the Panama Papers, more than a decade old. Haven't times changed in that decade?
Well, in what sense? There's still a lot of
they say sunshine is the best disinfectant. The fact that you have you have all this transparency now with these massive leaks that we're seeing, and in this case it's a document dump which has its flaws, but with a lot of it being redacted and it coming in fits and starts. But the fact that there's more information out there than before, does that help to again push back? And is the Me Too movement has it changed anything?
I think a lot of people, including me, thought that the big leaks from offshore, like the Panama Papers in 2016 and the Paradise Papers in 2017, and then the Pandora Papers in 2021, would sort of put a stop to the use of offshore, really dramatically decline its use. But that hasn't happened at all. All it's done is it's shown a spotlight on a few countries and a few companies, but then the offshore business has continued to grow in other places that offer better secrecy protections. And we've all seen what happened to the Me Too movement. There are a few high-profile cases. Harvey Weinstein is in prison, but it's sort of fizzled out. And same with the offshore leaks. There was a lot of fanfare, but not a lot of prosecutions and even fewer convictions. And I think many people concluded it was a big nothing burger because, well, if you're going to be transparent and reveal all these misuses of the legal system, but not do anything about it, why should we care? And I'm hoping this time with the Epstein files will be different.
Andrew Yarrow, will it be different?
Well, I think it's very tragic that, we're seeing figures that many people, myself included, once admired. Bill Gates, his philanthropy was so impressive. You see Sergey Brin, even Mandelson, who redirected the Labor Party in positive directions in the mid to late 90s. And and Bill Clinton, for that matter, are these men feeling that they can kind of paper over their misdeeds with philanthropy, with good public works? And, will these revelations stop or in some ways hinder powerful men from taking these really kind of reprehensible actions in the future? I don't know. It, it seems, is this a dark side of human nature that we're just going to have to keep living with? And, positive movements like Me Too, make a little bit of difference for a while, but then, it all seems to fade away, as Brooke mentioned.
All right, let's talk about that dark side of human nature. A New York mainstay since the 1980s, who as editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, The Daily Beast, is a journalist called Tina Brown. And here's what she had to say in a recent interview with the New York Times.
I was invited to a dinner after he had been convicted. The publicist called me in the office at the Daily Beast and she said, Tina, I want you to come to this great dinner I'm hosting. And she said, it's at Jeffrey Epstein's house. And the other guests are Charlie Rose, Woody Allen, and Prince Andrew. It's very funny because Lloyd Grove, who's a journalist at the Beast, who reminds me whenever I see him, he was sitting right there when I yelled into the phone, what the hell is this, the Predator's Ball? Because I was outraged that she hadn't seemed to have read our pieces, about this guy. No, thank you very much. I decline. I don't want to have dinner at Jeffrey Epstein's house.
Tina Brown refusing to go to the Predator's Ball. Anne-Elisabeth Moutet.
Well, Tina Brown gave as editor of the Tatler in London and Vanity Fair and then the New Yorker, and then she created the Daily Beast.
I mean, her whole job was going to parties, right?
She gave all the best parties.
She gave the best parties.
I mean, those parties were infra-dig compared to what she gave and the people she had at her parties, because she was the queen of both sort of glittery journalism and parties. And she's a great writer. She's a great journalist. She can look down at this, but most people in New York would have been wowed by the people who were there. It also depends when, and very obviously, if she says it's the Predator's Ball and Woody Allen is there, that's after Woody Allen was accused by Mia Farrow.
Yeah, this was after his conviction.
Yes. She, fine. I'm not sure she would have reacted in the same way to Woody Allen being president if it had been before the accusations against Woody Allen, for instance, because that's glittery enough. But she knew everyone. She didn't need to go to those parties. That's the big difference.
Were there people in the 90s?
She would have been a catch for Jeffrey Epstein, and I bet she knew it.
Were there people among the high and mighty who would have refused to go to a Jeffrey Epstein party back then?
Probably, certainly anybody who's not named, for instance, they are certainly innocent until proven guilty. So that still is a lot of people, and it depends how people perceived Epstein, and information must have circulated. I would have said that ever since the Madoff case, there must have been sort of wariness about going to see yet another financier that nobody knows exactly how he made so much money. That would be something, if you had an instinct for danger in New York, you would have asked one or two questions, and people might have said, look, he's a bit weird, in which case that was the end of it. But most people would not have reacted like that.
So humans, do they have a moral compass, Brooke Harrington?
Okay. Full disclosure, I'm a sociologist, not a psychologist. Some obviously do, and one of the things that really gives me hope in the last year, which has been so full of depressing events, is France has really stood up. Like, thank God France is going after Elon Musk, because my own country's government won't touch him. They just keep shoveling taxpayer dollars at him. So thank you, France, and also thank you, France, for prosecuting the Gisèle Pelicot case to the full extent of the law. Right now, France is really a beacon for what it means to have a moral compass as a society, and just as an individual, I'm incredibly grateful for that.
There is in the United States, meanwhile, a lot of performative politics, and there's going to be more at the end of the month. The former U.S. President Bill Clinton, his wife Hillary, staving off a contempt of Congress threat by agreeing to answer to a subpoena to testify at the end of February about the Epstein files. One condition, that the proceedings be publicly televised. Now, Donald Trump was asked on Tuesday about the Clintons testifying. Note the tone's very different from those campaign rallies in 2016 when he'd lead chants of lock her up, talking about Hillary Clinton.
Today we heard that the Clintons set deposition dates to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Any reaction to that related to the Epstein question?
I think it's a shame, to be honest. I always liked him. Her, yeah. She's a very capable woman. She was better in debating than some of the other people, I will tell you that. She was smart woman. I hate to see it in many ways. I hate to see it, but then I look at me. They went after me like, they wanted me to go to jail for the rest of my life. Then it turned out I was innocent, very innocent.
Yeah, Andrew Yarrow, you listened to Donald Trump. First of all, your reaction to hearing that comment now, and again, it's a question about the Epstein files in which he's saying, well, I kind of like the Clintons.
Yeah, it's very striking and really very bizarre when you think about it. As you said, I mean, he repeated over and over, had people at his rallies in 2016, scream out, lock her up. You look at this whole scandal with Epstein and the Epstein files and what it's done for Trump or how it's hurt Trump. I mean, you see polling that half of Republicans are not happy with, disapprove of Trump's handling of the Epstein files, first calling for releasing them, then holding back, then being forced to release them. Independent support has cratered for Trump. I think I saw one poll that about 22% of Americans supported Trump's handling of the Epstein files. One wonders, will this be many people wonder, is this the nail in Donald Trump's coffin? But on the other hand, has he kind of dodged a bullet by having his Justice Department, Pam Bondi, decide what files are released, what's redacted? So, his comments in that context about the Clintons start to make some psychological sense.
All right, so you have different media echo chambers these days, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. You have the news feeds of Trump voters, which have a different spin on the latest revelations. Earlier in the day, we looked at Fox News's website. There were no stories about Epstein above the fold, as it were. It was about ICE, about transgender athletes. The attention was elsewhere. At the same time, and this speaks to Andrew's point, the name that appears the most prominently, even in this heavily redacted batch of 3 million documents, is that of Donald J. Trump. Everything from water cooler chatter to an unproven rape allegation. At the end, does he just ride this out?
I don't know is the answer. Usually he's ridden out things that nobody would have expected him to get away with. So I'm sort of, it's almost as if everything has been discounted before. But it is such a big case, and I think it's going to hang on the Russian allegations. I think the Russian allegations, when you look back, that is the most dangerous, because there's always been talk of Trump being a Russian agent. And if that feeds back into it, then it's a major thing, because that means that the worst accusation of Trump being basically the Manchurian candidate turns out to be true. I think that's more important. Will the headlines be about that and not about the abuse of women? I do not know. But I would say worldwide is the thing that's going to most sort of weigh with it. And I might add that this is why the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, is saying, is paying much attention to that. That is something that all of Eastern Europe is looking at right now, because that means a great deal on the negotiations on Ukraine with the Russians, on the place given to Putin in Trump's diplomacy. To me, that's really a major thing. That is the proof of it is going to be how it comes out.
Brooke Harrington. So we have Peter Mandelson again, who's under scrutiny over allegedly leaking state secrets at the height of the financial crisis to Epstein. You have, as Anne-Elisabeth Moutet mentions just now, this Russia angle. We don't know how far it will go. We don't know how much the Justice Department will release, how much will be leaked perhaps elsewhere. At the end of the day, we saw, for instance, the former Trump loyalist turned opponent of his, the former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who stood with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. At the end of the day, is it going to be still about the victims, or is it going to be more about affairs of state?
That is the $60,000 question, as we say in the U.S. It's almost like a horse race now. You know, what will win the attention sweepstakes? Will it be the sexual abuse of girls, or will it be the financial corruption? So far, it's been remarkable how little Americans have cared about the financial corruption or about the possibility of Donald Trump being, as Anne Elizabeth says, a Manchurian candidate. It's almost like they've been inoculated against either believing that or considering the implications of that. I was struck in that clip you showed of Donald Trump praising Hillary Clinton, and how that relates to your initial question about networks among elites. He was saying, you know, she's part of my club. And in fact, she attended Donald Trump's wedding to Melania Trump. And, you know, Donald Trump is easily understood through things like professional wrestling, where contenders come out on the public stage and pretend to be at odds with each other, but then they go backstage and slap each other on the back and they're the best of friends. So my fear is that the power of that elite network, which Trump was signaling there, will sweep the morally embarrassing parts of this under the rug, the mass sexual exploitation of girls part, and then Americans will just be either unable to comprehend or in a state of permanent disbelief about the possibility of a Manchurian candidate in the White House. And of course, the thing you didn't mention is Donald Trump's getting very old, and he doesn't appear to be in very good health. So he may beat all of this by simply shuffling off this mortal coil before anything is made to stick.
And just one quick final question on this, Brooke. How do voters react, putting Donald Trump aside, how do they react at the next election cycle? Do they, as we say in France, just say they're all rotten, or do they reform?
Well, initial by-elections, like the one that was just held in a very red district of Texas that went for Trump by like plus 17, and then just swung amazingly to the other side to go for a Democrat, I think plus 14. Those are harbingers of voters being ready to come out to the polls and, if not vote for Democrats, vote resoundingly against Donald Trump. But as I'm sure you know, Trump is already trying to preempt this by unconstitutionally nationalizing elections, that is, taking it out of the hands of the individual 50 states.
But does something like the Epstein files at the end of the day fuel more populism, or bring people or bring more accountability into the system?
I think the populism might lead to demands for more accountability, because an amazing number of people who identify as Trump supporters are apparently very committed to the Epstein files being released. And they're now really angry at Trump in a populist way, and they may demand accountability and come out to the polls on that basis.
We'll have to leave it there. Brooke Harrington, so many thanks for joining us from Florence, Italy. I want to thank Andrew Yarrow in Washington and Elisabeth Moutet. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.